and welcome to World Insight, coming to you live from Beijing on CCTV News. I'm your host, Tian Wei. On today's program, long road to the White House. U.S. presidential nomination process finally gets underway, with the Iowa caucus as the first test of momentum for the aspiring candidates. And Myanmar's new parliament takes office, but many political and national challenges still lie ahead for Aung San Suu Kyi's fledgling government. And we begin today's show as America takes its first step in the race to the White House. U.S. presidential candidates are making a final pitch to voters in Iowa, the first state to get its say in the party nominations. Among a packed field of 15 candidates, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton faces off against self-proclaimed socialist Bernie Sanders, while New York billionaire Donald Trump and Senator Ted Cruz lead the Republican pack.
It all starts here. The Iowa caucus holds a unique place in the U.S. electoral calendar. It marks the beginning of the presidential nomination process for both the Democratic and Republican parties. A big win here could mean valuable momentum in the states that follow. This past week saw candidates make their final pitch to the voters, although many in the audience may have already made up their minds.
Well, I'm very sorry to see Mr. Trump behaving the way he is. I think he's juvenile. I don't think that the character that he exhibits is suitable to be a president of the United States. I've admired Mr. Cruz because I think he's tried to stay above that kind of behavior.
I don't think Hillary has that going on. And the young voters. He's turning out the young voters. He's like the cool grandpa.
In the wide Republican field, recent polling suggests that business tycoon Donald Trump has a lead over Ted Cruz and the other candidates. The Democratic race is much tighter, with former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton just edging ahead of Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. Both the frontrunners have had their share of controversies, with Clinton still ensconced in a scandal over classified emails, and Trump weathering accusations of racism over his unique brand of rhetoric.
When Hillary Clinton runs, and she should be in jail, by the way, for what she did, just so you understand. No, she should be.
But this is what I want you to understand. When the Republican candidates for president demean and insult American Muslims, they're not just being offensive. That's dangerous. We need everybody in this country to be on the same side against terrorists, against the kind of dangers and threats we face.
The nomination process will see votes held in every state and overseas territory. It all starts with the Iowa caucus this week. March will see a dozen more states pick their presidential nominees on the same day, widely referred to as Super Tuesday. By the end of April, most states will have cast their vote, and in most election cycles, clear winners will have emerged by then. But nothing will be official until the party conventions are held in July. From then on in, it's the final stretch as the Democrat and Republican nominees face off in November for the presidency. It's a long road to the White House, and a lot can happen between now and then. But with Iowa finally having its say, the race is now truly on.
And for more on the Iowa caucus, we are joined by Mr. Yuan Peng, who is the Vice President of China Institute of Contemporary International Relations, and certainly one of the most well-known scholars in China about American studies. And also joining us from Washington, D.C., we have Ms. Maricruz McGowan, who is the Vice President of the National Economists Club. And joining us by phone from Orlando is Ms. Laura Schwartz, who is a speaker, author, and commentator who previously worked for the Clinton administration. Welcome to the three of you. This is going to be a big day for those in the United States. I understand, Ms. McGowan, that usually top three that is winning among those in the Iowa caucus from both parties would be the strongest contenders eventually in the presidential election race. Is this time likely to be similar?
Well, we don't know. We have seen, for example, in the Republican side, which was more predictable in the last two elections, that it was Mike Huckabee and Rick Santorum that won the Iowa, and obviously they didn't win the primaries. But on the other hand, it gives you the pulse of the race. So I think the person who will be more tested in this caucus in Iowa will be Mrs. Clinton. I think if she doesn't win by a lot, I think she will have trouble upcoming in the election from now on until either she or Senator Sanders wins the primaries. I think that is the key result for this evening, much more than in the Republican side.
Ms. Schwartz, by working with the Clinton administration earlier, do you have the same feeling?
Well, this is where the pulse of the presidential race begins, tonight in Iowa. I think Mrs. Clinton, the Secretary of State, could easily come in second place within a few points of Mr. Sanders and still have a very good showing. This is not a make or break for any of the candidates, as even though we are talking about this, America is focused on this, the world is looking at it. This is the first of many states that will have to vote. And tonight, a very good showing, meaning a close percentage between Sanders and Clinton, means they both move on with strength.
What about from the Republican side?
From the Republican
we have,
side,
Mr. Trump.
Mr. Schwartz.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I really think we need to look at those that finished third, fourth, and fifth. And I'll tell you why. You've got this outsider surge in the Republican presidential primary. You've got Donald Trump and Ted Cruz, who is a senator in the United States Senate, but pretty bit disliked and has some pretty far out ideas, both way ahead of the pack and doing really well. Now, as we go on state by state, especially through what was referenced, Super Tuesday, March 1st, it'll be interesting to see where the not-so-outsiders fall, but the governors that are running. And if the governors start fighting out for like maybe that fourth or fifth place in Iowa, next week in New Hampshire, those governors, those traditionalists may have a chance to eke in on the Donald Trump momentum.
I see. What do you think, Ms. McGowan, in terms of the Republican side? I was being told by various news reports, in fact, that both parties, once you got into the top three in terms of Iowa caucus and also the New Hampshire primary, it's very likely you are in the top three contenders eventually in the presidential race. There's only one recent exception, that is John McCain. So whoever will be in the top three are more important, or whoever will be the runner-up, let's say in the fourth, fifth, or sixth position.
Well, we could be surprised, but I don't think so. I think you're right. The probabilities rise, obviously, if you are within the next three, the top three in Iowa and in New Hampshire. Let's not forget that we will have a better meaning of this race after we see both caucuses in Iowa and New Hampshire. We see Mr. Trump, obviously, Mr. Cruz, but the third one could be, and everybody's talking about, Marco Rubio. And Marco Rubio could be the surprise of this election. We will see. As I said, we will see. One thing that we saw, according to the polls, and that this evening, a lot of people that did not participate in caucuses before are planning to do so.
Interesting. Therefore, it's a very important topic. Mr. Schwartz, many say, whether Donald Trump from the Republican side or Bernie Sanders, in fact, a socialist, but now registered from the Democrat side, will have much votes eventually will depend on whether their supporters are coming out or not, who are usually not traditional voters.
Yes, and that is a very good part of both of their candidacies, no matter what side of the aisle or political party you believe in. They are getting more people in the process and tuned in and really immersing themselves into it. Now the question will be, will they attend and go vote? Do they know the rules of the caucus? Do they know where they are to caucus? Are they registered to vote, which is something they've been doing at a lot of these rallies. So both at the same time, hey, this is great, this is exciting, getting more people involved, you've got to take it to the next step. Both of those campaigns are working hard to do that, but the other ones running against them have proven tested constituencies that are more regular, that you can count on. So it'll be interesting to see tonight, hey, no matter who wins or loses or who comes in close, I'm excited to see how many people turn out and are part of this great process.
We're going to see what's going to happen, because 8 years ago was quite an interesting phenomenon. Barack Obama did manage to bring out a lot of new voters 8 years ago during the presidential campaign. Mr. Yuan, sitting here, you're one of those outstanding Chinese scholars on American studies. You witnessed yourself the American presidential elections many times, but what do you make of these two very interesting candidates from the Republican side, Donald Trump, and from the Democrat side, Bernie Sanders? Obviously, they have a lot of angry supporters.
Yes, as a Chinese observer of this American politics, I think this coming American presidential election is the most complicated and the most interesting one in the past 20 years. Not only there are maybe dozens of Republican candidates to join, but also because of two very famous non-mainstream or non-typical candidates, Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. So why those two non-mainstream candidates so far taking leads? At least Donald Trump still taking leads for quite a while.
Yes, indeed.
I think because of, you are right, because of the angry voters. Why they're angry? I think because in the past 20 years, American politics has highly polarized. You can see rich and poor, black and white, blue and red. I'm blue state and red state, central government and local. They have totally different ideas. See the central government by Obama administration and their disputes with Congress. We see a very strong struggle between different parties. So I think the angry people, they need some change. They are tired of the traditional political struggle. They want somebody else to do something good for the everyday people, to make the lifestyle getting better, rather than just make the rich richer, poor poorer.
Well, whether these two candidates are likely to provide those, as they at least pledge to do so, it's still a big question mark. Of course, too early to say so. It's still 1 year to go, huh? But on the other hand, Ms. McGowan, we have noticed that both of these candidates have tried to bring in a lot of voters that are not traditional voters, and also many of them that are supporting them. Those two candidates are actually, as Mr. Yuan said, angry voters. What do you make of this phenomenon? What do you make of these very non-traditional candidates now leading the polls?
Well, with Mr. Trump, and also the same message coming from Senator Sanders, is that for years Americans had been disenchanted and not interested when they see or they perceive that these politicians, these presidents, are being put by great, very wealthy corporations because of their donations. Once they become presidents, they have to pay the favor. And now they are seeing Mr. Trump that is not receiving money from anyone. So if he becomes president, he will not have to pay favors to anyone, which is very good for the country. And we see Senator Sanders more or less saying the same thing, that, you know, it's time for the country, for the middle class, for the poor, for everybody to elect the president. We are very tired of seeing only the rich people telling us who are going to be our leaders. I think that is the difference with past elections. It is not only the rhetoric, but they are also doing something about it. And let's see how the people react. And what I am seeing is more and more people getting engaged with this process, which is very good for both candidates.
I see. But what about from the Republican side? They also have some very interesting phenomenon over there. Ms. Schwartz, both Donald Trump and also Ted Cruz have been bringing out those so-called evangelicals. And many have been suggesting these evangelicals that are supporting the two individual candidates are very different from one another. So for those from outside the United States, it's very hard to understand this part of your politics. Help us to understand this.
Well, that's a very good question. In Iowa, you have a large sector of a very religious core. And this core turns out faithfully, and they want to know where the candidate stands on the social issue, which social issues are economic issues, but they want to know pro-life, pro-choice, women's right to choose or not. They want to talk gay marriage and the end of gay marriage or changing gay marriage. They really hit these points. Donald Trump, even though he's had other statements in the past, have come out in line with their goals, and they've responded to that. Donald Trump went to church the last 2 Sundays and brought television cameras with him. They responded to that. But that is a large set of the Iowa vote. That is not going to be as much of a trend in the upcoming New Hampshire, South Carolina, Nevada. There are many people of faith participating in these elections, which is a wonderful thing. But in Iowa, it's much more targeted. And that's why you've seen the shift in some of the Trump campaign, and Cruz and Marco Rubio, a tested Catholic, really go after the evangelical vote because they show up and they vote.
Mr. Yuan, it is not just this time that we see interesting phenomena, but also last election with the Tea Parties. So what do you make of these once an election comes, we see some very unique phenomena in the U.S. politics?
I think it's because of the new development of American economy and politics. After financial crisis, American economy getting a decline, and Obama wants to change and do some kind of a radical reform. But this reform may be good for their own party, but bad for GOP. So the politically polarized. And then politically, I think the two parties is highly divided. Then we see some like Tea Party, like Senator Sanders, call himself Democratic Socialist. This kind of guy becoming the real candidates, and also give a very high poll according to American different polls. So it's a very unique of American politics. As Chinese observer of American politics, I think this election give us something new to learn in the future to how to understand the American presidential election. And Iowa caucus is the very beginning of the coming election. To the convention of two parties in the summer, still has a long way to go. But in the past, maybe in the next maybe 6 or 7 months, it's a very good opportunity for Chinese observers to follow and to learn what has been going on in the American politics.
The latest trends of American politics. Having said that, though, the Iowa caucus 8 years ago was so-called the beginning of the end for the Clinton candidacy. Obviously, Ms. Clinton did not do very well later, losing to this so-called dark horse, Barack Obama. Ms. McGowan, what do you make of this time, even though Ms. Clinton is leading the poll at the moment? What's likely to be the fate of her, particularly with the recent new accusation suggesting her private emails were dealing with some of the top secret emails, even though she said it was unfair because the level of top secrets had been elevated only recently?
Well, actually, that is not completely accurate. That's still an investigation because some reports suggest that it was determined top secret, and then it was changed to, when the investigation started, to not top secret, and then it went back. So the investigation is going on. Nobody knows. But it's not good news for Ms. Clinton. It doesn't matter how is it going, but to be investigated by the FBI, and when the investigation is not going in your favor, and also there's the precedent of General Petraeus, who did a similar thing and was fined $100,000 and a 2-year suspension, it is a very bad precedent for somebody that wants to be president. So I don't think. And second, you know, in 2008, two big mistakes that she made was to trust too much that she was going to be the nominee and not working hard enough to defeat Barack Obama. And the second mistake that she made then is that she was talking all the time about her, what she did, she was a woman and so on, while Senator Obama was telling people what he was going to do for them. She changed that this time, but I don't know, she made this same mistake again and thinking that Senator Sanders was not going to be a challenge for her.
Well, Ms. Schwartz, what is your feeling at this moment about her fate, this time in Iowa at least?
Well, I think she learned a lot from that shellacking she got by Barack Obama years ago. She's changed her operation. She's changed and morphed her message into what I can do for you, not just what I am doing. And I think that's really resonated. Yes. And we've not only just seen that in the polls, but we've seen it face to face. You know, she has an event, she sticks around for a half an hour after speaking with everyone in that crowd. And I think her approach to the campaign is different, where she's talking less about herself and more of the issues that are affecting people, how they're affecting people, and why her solutions are the best solutions. And she is enjoying this campaign. Last night, she gave a speech at 10 o'clock in Iowa. It was probably one of the best moments, I believe, in this campaign yet. She was excited. She was compassionate. She was passionate. And she really put it together for the Iowans. And I believe that is the same message that she will take to every primary state and every voter.
I see.
And then through the entire general election if she gets the nomination.
Wow,
this is a much different candidacy for Hillary Clinton.
Well, and at least we are seeing among our panelists a very strong supporter of Ms. Clinton, obviously, Ms. Ross over there. Mr. Yuan, Ms.
Well,
Clinton...
no, I mean, if you just look at the facts and how she's approaching it, and then side-storing that with before, you see a different candidate.
Okay.
And Bernie Sanders has made her a better one, but I support anyone running to improve the political process. I have voted for Republicans as well as Democrats.
There we go.
And I think everybody should take a good look at everyone.
Okay, Mr. Yuan, you see Ms. Clinton has been such a dividing figure in a way. Those who love her so dearly. Those who do not like her seem to believe she should never be the candidate. What do you make of this phenomena, particularly the fact that she has served as the Secretary of State and dealing with China, and we are going to see some China bashing certainly in the future during the U.S. presidential election campaign season?
First of all, I hope this time, good luck for Hillary Clinton. Because last time everybody thinks she would be the final choice of a Democrat Party, and because of Barack Obama. And this time, another older than him, 75 years old, Senator Sanders, becoming another maybe dark horse, so nobody knows. But at least I think Hillary Clinton, as a First Lady and as the former Secretary of State, he went to China several times. He got familiar with China affairs. She knew China much better than everybody else in all those candidates. So even if she has his own stance, but I hope, based on her knowledge about China, her final win would benefit for the future U.S. and China relations.
I see. A lot of going on at this moment and a lot to go. In fact, for the 1 year to come, we want to thank the three of you for helping us understand the complicated political scene in America when it comes to the political election season. Yuan Peng with us in Beijing, Mary Cruz McGowan, and Laura Schwartz from the United States. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay with us here on World Insight. We got our final segment coming right up. New day in Myanmar. Aung San Suu Kyi's NLD party take the reins of power, but political and national challenges still lie ahead. Welcome back. You're watching World Insight on CCTV News. Myanmar's newly elected parliament has finally convened in the country's capital. Hundreds of lawmakers were in attendance, a majority of them from Aung San Suu Kyi's party, the National League for Democracy. A new president will be chosen next month, but the outcome is still uncertain as Suu Kyi's eligibility remains undecided. It's a major milestone for Myanmar, but also a crossroads as many political challenges still lie ahead.
A new beginning for Myanmar. The country's first democratically elected parliament convenes in the capital. It's being hailed as a momentous political shift for a country dominated by the military for decades. The National League for Democracy, or NLD, led by Aung San Suu Kyi, replaces the old guard who are backed by the military.
I would like to welcome the new members of parliament. In the meantime, I would like to congratulate the old members because of the work they have done. The way forward for the new members is much clearer.
As the previous parliament was dissolved, the president hailed the achievement of a peaceful transition.
This is the first time since independence that a peaceful power transfer is taking place between the government and newly elected leaders. I want to say that I promise to finish this important task following proper procedures.
One of the new parliament's first jobs will be to choose a president to replace Thein Sein, who will step down at the end of March. The next president will be decided later this month or in early March. Both the upper and lower houses each elect a vice president, and the military nominate their own choice. The president is then elected at a joint sitting of parliament from the three vice presidential picks. Despite her role as the political icon leading the NLD to their landslide victory in November, Suu Kyi is barred from the presidency. The constitution bans anyone who has had children with a non-national. But whatever happens, she's indicated she'll hold the reins of power regardless of who holds the presidential office.
Who said I'm going to be the Prime Minister? The Prime Minister is below the President. I've said I'm going to be above the President. Oh, I've already made plans.
What official position she'll end up occupying is still unknown.
Everything is possible, but there is no confirmation at this point. But if Suu Kyi wants to have power over the president, she will have to sit in an independent position.
The National League for Democracy is now in power, but they still face a host of formidable economic and social challenges in this, one of the region's poorest nations. That comes amid inevitable political complications involving the still powerful military and clashes in minority regions. Suu Kyi and her National League for Democracy promised change in the election campaign. It's now time to see if they can deliver.
About the latest situation in politics in Myanmar, we're joined here in the Beijing studio, Mr. Yuan Peng once again, who is the Vice President of the China Institute of Contemporary International Relations. Welcome, sir, back to our program. Also, in Washington, D.C., we are joined by Ms. Priscilla Clapp, who is the former Chief of Mission at the U.S. Embassy in Myanmar and now a senior advisor to the U.S. Institute of Peace. Welcome, ma'am, to our program. Meanwhile, joining us from Singapore, we are having Dr. Lim Tai Wei, who is a research fellow adjunct from the East Asian Institute at the National University of Singapore. Also, welcome to you, sir. Well, this is quite a big day, I guess, for Myanmar. The parliament comes into convening at this moment. We are asking the question, Ms. Clapp, about what is the potential of the National League of Democracy, this leading party now in Myanmar, out of the first democratic election inside the country, and also the military. What is your sense?
Well, the NLD in the parliament holds an overwhelming majority of the elected seats, and most of the legislation in the parliament will be under the control of the NLD, except for anything that deals with changes to the Constitution. That would take more than a 75% vote, and the military occupies 25% of the seats. So that's up to the military whether they change the Constitution. But the NLD will be in charge basically of running the government. And I think we're going to see a lot of changes.
Dr. Lim, is that also your feeling about the relations likely to be grungy between the the National League of Democracy and also the military, or likely to be smooth?
Well, I think this is a very unique situation because the last parliament that was democratically elected was in 1962. And therefore, this is a watershed in many ways. And of course, with anything that's new, there's always a learning curve. And the learning curve that most people would expect would be how the NLD will be able to forge some common points or common positions with the 25% of the parliament that's held by the military. And cooperation between the two factions would be good for progress and development, and also to move the country forward economically, particularly against the backdrop of the ASEAN Economic Community that was formed in the 31st December 2015, and also Myanmar's economic outreach to the US, the West, as well as China. So there's a lot of leeway for compromise and to forge some positions of unity on certain issues that are common to all stakeholders.
I see. Mr. Yuan, China was in exchange with the military government when it was in power. Later, Chinese Communist Party Central Liaison Office also invited Aung San Suu Kyi to visit China. It was quite a nice surprise at the moment when the news came out. So what do you make, from China's perspective, the current situation in Myanmar, of course, one of China's closest neighbors?
As a long-time friendly neighboring countries of Myanmar, I think China value our traditional strategic relations very, very much. In this regard, we are very happy to see that the new election and outcome of NLD, National League for Democracy, wins the election. And we are very happy to see that last year Aung San Suu Kyi also invited to visit China. I think it's good for the future. But it's the new, new position of Aung San Suu Kyi in the future. At least she has to face three challenges, which means three balances. First of all, how to balance his own party with the military, and secondly, how to balance her own role, because according to the constitution, she cannot be the real leader of the country. But what kind of role she will play, and how to balance her own role within her own party. And thirdly, I think Aung San Suu Kyi is highly appreciated by the Western world. Then how to balance the Western world's demands for her
or
and
expectations
her own
for her.
Expectations for her, and with her own national interest. So how to manage those three balances, I think, real big challenges for her.
Maybe one of those challenges can be better analyzed by Ms. Clapp from the United States. Ms. Clapp, you've been working in the U.S. Embassy in Myanmar before. What do you think are the expectations from the Western governments now for Ms. Aung San Suu Kyi, knowing that she has to balance herself on so many different layers of issues?
Western governments will be looking to her to make those decisions. Western governments will support whatever the NLD wants to do by way of democratizing the country. We're very concerned about the situation with regard to human rights in the country, and I'm sure that she will address that. We're concerned about the peace process, and she's already cited that as a priority. That is arriving at peace in the country with the warring factions. They have had a civil war going on in that country for over 50 years now, and they would like to bring it to an end. That is essential to democratizing the country. And it's really quite remarkable that the new leaders of the parliament will be a mix of ethnic representatives and political parties. It's probably a sign of the way that she's going to put the new government together as a coalition government.
At this moment, Ms. Clapp, of course, Aung San Suu Kyi has promised she will lead the country in a certain way, but she certainly is not the necessarily going to be the country's leader, because that is at least according to the latest version of the constitution. And secondly, her name not included in the speaker's list either. So what role will she play? Do you think there are creative ways for her to play a leadership role?
Oh yes, she will be the leader, but it won't be in a formal position. Her formal position is a member of the parliament, so she is a member of the government. But she obviously, as we can see so far, is not having herself elected to another formal position. If she were to become president, which she can't right now, but if she were to become president, according to the Constitution, she would have to step back from her party, and I don't think she wants to do that yet. So the NLD will name a president. There will be an election in the parliament for the new president, probably sometime later in February. And then she will work behind the scenes. She's already set up a process of consultation with the commander-in-chief and other significant leaders in the country. So I think we'll see that informal process continuing. And a lot of the decisions, a lot of the negotiations will happen behind the scenes.
Dr. Lim, of course, there are various kinds of political arrangement for any country as long as it is their own choices. However, once Ms. Suu Kyi stepped back from the political role, direct political role, let's just say, as the president or as the speaker, and only play a certain role within the party, it is very likely to invite a future conflict with the potential candidate of the president or of the speaker of the party. So what do you think about the political stability within that country? We've already seen the military play a half visible, half hidden role, and you will have Ms. Suu Kyi also playing that similar role, yet in different ways. So only making the national politics ever more complicated for not a geographically larger country. Dr. Lim.
Yes, Ms. Suu Kyi will not be having a formal position, but she has made it clear to the international media that she will be above the president, which means that she will be exerting influence on the party, and her party has the current majority, 80% of the parliament seats. And so the presidential process would consist of upper house, lower house, and also the military faction, and each of them will have a nominee for the presidency. And out of the three nominees, they'll be put before a joint session of all three factions, and they will vote for the president, and the two losers will become the vice presidents, which means in this system, it is quite likely that one of her loyalists would become the president, and also perhaps one more vice president. So in this sense, she will have, she is able to exert informal influence over the political system. Now, to change the constitution to allow her to become the president might be a little bit so-called unforeseeable right now, because she would need to have the support of the military faction in order to achieve the number of votes to change the constitution. So, in other words, her influence will be informal, and you can see that she's been outreaching to all factions, to her own party, to the military faction, to foreign powers, and also to the rebels within the country. So we are quite likely to see a very active Aung San Suu Kyi, even though she may not have a formal executive position within the country itself.
Civil war put into an end, of course, everybody applaud that. Also, one of the very first democratic election within the country, at least believed to be, is also being applauded by the international community. But Mr. Yuan, the question is, how long will stability last in that country? Of course, we all wish the best for Myanmar, but at the same time, this is a very fragile democracy that we're talking about, and very complicated, as we have already indicated by the other two speakers, a political arrangement, at least for now.
Yes, as the biggest neighbor of Myanmar, China is the most country that need a peaceful and stable Myanmar, because we have now built One Belt One Road initiative, and we want make Myanmar prosperous future through China's One Belt One Road initiative. So without the basic stability, how can we expect that? And the current election, NLD taking the lead and taking the new position, I think the military just accept the new reality. This is good news for the party, negotiation and coordination. This is good news for the future, peace and stability. And one friend from Myanmar told me that a story that they called in the Western country, like Great Britain, brought the Western education and civilization to Myanmar, and India brought Buddhism to Myanmar. Where China we are just the same blood, same ethnic groups. We are brother. So which shows that China and Myanmar will have very, very unique relations. That's why we really hope a stable and a peaceful Myanmar is coming soon.
Ms. Clapp, we understand Ms. Aung San Suu Kyi, of course, as a democratic fighter, has been well known all over the world. She's also maintaining some very good personal relations with even some of the presidential candidates, for example, Ms. Hillary Clinton, over the past few decades. But the question is, will national interests of Myanmar from now on and those expectations from countries like yours eventually grew apart, the two women and also the two countries? That's a big question mark. Ms. Clapp, what do you make of this possibility?
Well, I think that you'll find that the United States government, whoever the president is in the next administration, will remain very supportive of the NLD government in Myanmar. I don't see that we're going to have a convergence of interests. I think that we have the same interests, fundamentally the same interests. As I said earlier, we do have some problems with human rights questions there. The Buddhist-Muslim divide, the ethnic wars that are going on, and we hope to see the NLD tackling those issues.
All right.
So you will see Washington putting some pressure on the government to face those issues.
I see. Priscilla Clapp, Lin Tai Wei, and Yuan Peng, thank you so much for being with us. That is all the time we have for today. If you'd like to see more of the program, visit our website. Just type in World Insight CCTV News into your search engine. You'll be able to find us, or you can also check out our YouTube channel. From me, Tian Wei, and everyone at the World Insight team, thanks for watching, and tune in again tomorrow for more insights from across China and around the world. Good night.